Welcome to GP Bullhound's Tech Thoughts. Today is the 8th of October, and we are here with Inge Heydorn and Johan Roslund for our weekly market roundup. Today, they will talk about market updates and dive deeper into the gaming, software, and semiconductor sectors. Over to them.
Let's start with the market sentiment. As you know and have seen, it's been very, very negative. It has been, been a little bit more positive end of this week due to the debt ceiling negotiations that has been improving, and thereby we have seen some green figures on the screens lately. But with that said, we are still quite skeptical in the short run. We still think there could be some bad news coming in ahead of Christmas due to the supply issues we are still struggling with across almost all industries. So beware about that. I think Q3 will be fine, but going into the guidance of Q4, a lot of people could be quite cautious. But let's kick off with gaming.
And EA, one of the biggest public gaming companies, had some good news around the football game FIFA that has now been played by over 9 million players for the latest FIFA 2022 in just 1 week. And it's also interesting to note that it's almost 500 million games played in 1 week. However, they had some problems with the beta of Battlefield that had a lot of bugs in it, but we'll see, that will probably be fixed. We also had some news from, or a release from the French company Ubisoft that released Far Cry 6. However, looking at the Metacritic scores, you can clearly see that for each Far Cry version, the Metacritics have been lower and lower. And the share price reacted pretty bad on this news, that it was only 75 on this game, and the share is down 9% in 1 week. It's also interesting to note that Amazon game is still, that is called New World, is still #1 at Steam that we talked about last week.
Yes, looking at that list this morning is quite interesting. They're #1 in 5 different spots. So on the top list of 10, they are #1, #2, #3, and so on, given the fact that you have different packages of it being sold. So they're clearly doing really well. And also just to mention on Far Cry, the first initial response from players has not been great either. Which is not good news for Ubisoft. Going over to semiconductors, we have had some results and numbers out this morning, so really hot news. Samsung reported this morning, and sales came in at 61.2 billion, which is really strong. Operating profit came in at 13.2 billion, which is also very strong. So semiconductors is really pushing Samsung numbers, both on the top line and on the bottom line. So good news, but as expected. Then we also had TSMC, which is, is the biggest foundry in the world and just ahead of Samsung when it comes to semiconductor equipment production. And they also reported really good numbers, 152 billion Taiwanese dollars in the September month, which is really strong. It's up 11% month on month, and that's clearly higher than normal, it's a good sign for Apple, which is a big client for them, but it's also a good sign for TSMC being able to ramp up volumes as they have been struggling with capacity running close to 100%. So it's definitely good news, and it's slightly above consensus. So, but the big worry lately for TSMC has been a little bit on the margin side. So let's see when the results comes out later this month if they can keep margins and or even improve them. On top of that, just I want to mention Samco, the Japanese company, stating now that they're going to build another 300mm fab, and Infineon had a capital markets day this week, also out stating they will lift capex around 30% for next year. So that's quite interesting to see that the capex spend in 2022 looks really healthy across the board. Going over to the last topic of the day, Facebook, on everybody's mind in tech the last week, given the whistleblower. But I would like to start like almost two and a half weeks ago. We had the vice president of Facebook being out stating that they will be struggling a little bit with growth in the quarter, as they already said at the end of Q2, given the EDFA changes at Apple. But this is really the first time we have seen anybody senior in Facebook being out talking about the numbers inside of a quarter, and the market took that quite negatively and started to put pressure on shares. On top of that, we have the whistleblower thing going on and the discussions around that. On top of that, we have the shortage of supply going into Q4 and Christmas season from many vendors. And with that stated, and it could be that you do less marketing on the Facebook platform, which is very dependent on smaller vendors going into Christmas. As you don't have any products really to sell, you will sell everything anyway. So that makes us slightly cautious on the Q4 guidance for Facebook.
You had the problem that all domains and assets of Facebook were down almost half a day this week, and both revenue, but of course trust. When you see both Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, that big of a company can have those problems.
Yeah, and also the fact that as you probably seen, also a lot of people switched that day and downloaded Telegram or Snap, or just to have some way to communicate. We're so dependent in this world about communication, so we're switching very fast to keep up with the communication. So not good news at all.
Great. I think that was a wrap for this week, and see you next week.